Hi, everybody, and welcome back. This is yours truly, your host, B9400. Ben discusses history. First of all, I'd like to take the time to apologize for the long hiatus. This little thing called life got in the way. And secondly, thanks to all of you that stuck with me during my hiatus. Anyway, that's not the point. The point of today's video is going to be about a very special part of the world. Known as the territory of Hong Kong, which was once a part of the now long defunct British Empire. And basically, today I'm going to talk about the history of the city from dating back to the colonial period and even uh, further back than that. So let's get into it, shall Archaeological evidence of prehistoric settlements in Hong Kong, specifically in Wan Ti Tung and Tongwan, show that humans lived in the Hong Kong Peninsula area as early as Neolithic times, specifically around 4000 to 2000 BCE. Then we had the Han Dynasty that lasted from 206 BCE until 220 CE. The territory of Hong Kong back then was part of Panyu County and the Nanhai Camaraderie. Chinese culture, language, and administrative systems began to influence the area. And we got the Tang Dynasty that lasted from 618 until 907. The region became a trading post for salt production and pearl fishing. Tuen Mun was an important naval base in those days. And you have the Song Dynasty that lasted from 960 until 1279. Refugees from northern mainland China fleeing Mongol invasions migrated south, introducing advanced culture, agriculture, and commerce. The Ming Dynasty, which lasted from 1368 until 1644, Hong Kong's coastal villages primarily engaged in fishing, salt, and farming. Pirate activity was common in those days. And the Qing Dynasty lasted from 1644 until 1911, and after the coastal evacuation policy that was officially implemented in 1661 and then officially concluded in 1669, the population slowly started returning, and by the 18th century, the territory of Hong Kong was a small rural backwater of the Qing Empire. The British colonial period. It officially started in 1841 and officially concluded in 1997 with the official handover back to the People's Republic of China by that of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. From 1839 until 1842, the First Opium War broke out between the British Empire and China after Chinese officials suppressed opium trade in Canton, modern-day Guangzhou. And on the 26th of January 1841, British forces of the Empire officially occupied what is modern-day Hong Kong Island. And then the following year, in 1842, there was the Treaty of Nanking. China ceded Hong Kong Island to Great Britain in perpetuity, marking the start of British Hong Kong. The early colonial years officially started in the 1840s, and then all the way up until the 1890s, the Victorian period, basically. And in 1843, the territory of Hong Kong became a crown colony of the British Empire. A gentleman by the name of Sir Henry Pottinger became the territory's first governor. And from 1856 until 1860, this was the Second Opium War, and following China's defeat and the Treaty of Beijing that was signed in 1860, this basically ceded the Kowloon Peninsula south of Boundary Street and Stonecutters Island. And by 1898, the Second Convention of Peking leased the new territories north of the Kowloon Peninsula to the Shenzhen River and surrounding islands to Great Britain for the next 99 years. Economic and social development. The territory of Hong Kong developed into a free port and trading hub linking China to the rest of the world. The population grew rapidly, especially as refugees fled mainland instability. For example, you got the Taiping Rebellion. And then you get infrastructure, you got the modern legal system, Western style education, specifically the University of Hong Kong that was officially established in 1911. And then you got transport consisting of, tramways, Peak Tram, and the infamous Star Ferry, which is a household name in the territory. Then you got the social divide. You had the wealthy British elite, and then you got the Chinese laborers who lived in very different, contrasting conditions at the time. And then fast forward to the Second World War, you got the Japanese occupation, which lasted from 1941 up until 1945, when the Second World War officially concluded with the surrenders of both Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan. And during World War II, Imperial Japan occupied Hong Kong Island from December of 1941, when Japan attacked the American military base of Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, up until August of 1945, when World War II officially concluded. This was all after British forces were defeated in the jungles of Burma. And then life under occupation for those living within the territory at the time was incredibly harsh. There was food shortages, executions, and basically widespread suffering occurred, and it was on a consistent daily basis, unfortunately for them. And then British rule was officially restored to the territory after Imperial Japan's surrender in 1945. And upon the conclusion of World War II in 1945, up until the 1970s, post-war Hong Kong experienced rapid industrialization, mostly driven by Chinese entrepreneurs fleeing from across the border from mainland China, and following the Communist Revolution led by a certain figure in history known as Mao Zedong in 1949. And the influx of refugees from mainland China transformed the economy from manufacturing primarily textile plastics to a global trading center. And then from the 1950s until the 1960s, there was a massive growth in public housing, education, and health systems. And by the late 1960s, specifically 1967, left-wing riots inspired by China's Cultural Revolution was a turning point that was basically a turning point that led Great Britain, the governing imperial power, to improve governance and social welfare within the territory for the residents. And then from the 1970s until the 1980s, the territory emerged as one of the four Asian tigers, with booming export-led growth and rising living standards. And by the 1970s, manufacturing gave way to finance and services, and the city ultimately became one of the world's busiest ports and financial centers, which it currently is to this day, actually. So, now, the transition and handover. This process officially started in the 1980s and officially concluded in 1997, specifically in August of that year. So, starting with the negotiations with the People's Republic of China, the lease of the new territories was set to expire in the year 1997, which made the colony's future uncertain. And going back to 1994, the Sino-British Joint Declaration was signed, and this involved the United Kingdom and the People's Republic of China agreeing that the territory of Hong Kong would officially return to Chinese sovereignty by the year 1997 under the principle of one country, two systems. The territory of Hong Kong would retain its capitalist system, legal autonomy, and way of life for 50 years after 1997 had passed. The Basic Law of 1990, long story short, the mini-constitution of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. The abbreviation for that is HKSAR, and this is all in relation to the preparation for the handover come 1997. So from starting in 1992, the last British imperial governor of the territory, a gentleman by the name of Chris Patten, introduced limited democratic reforms to the territory, and by the 1st of July, uh, I I earlier misquoted the official handover date. Sovereignty over the territory was officially transferred over to the People's Republic of China's jurisdiction and authority. And then, okay, so we got the territory of Hong Kong under the jurisdiction and authority of the People's Republic of China, which has been a reality since 1997 up until the present day. Starting in 1997 and concluding, and not concluding, excuse me, until basically it's been running ever since the 2010s. The territory remained largely stable and prosperous after the handover in the late 1990s, and then you had the small matter of the Asian financial crisis, which lasted from 1997 until 1998, which affected the territory and those living there pretty damn hard, but they eventually overcame it though. And to further add to that, the territory continued to develop as a global financial center, tourism hub, and gateway to mainland China across the border. And by 2003, massive protests against Article 23, otherwise known as the National Security Law, the government eventually decided to shelve it and sweep it under the rug after widespread opposition from that of the locals in the territory. And fast forward to 2014, the umbrella movement demanded universal suffrage after the People's Republic of China restricted election reforms within the territory. Now, more recently, and by 2019, there was a proposed extradition bill which triggered widespread mass protests all throughout the territory, and it actually also resulted in a mass exodus of residents to the former colonial power, that being the United Kingdom of Great Britain, primarily because most most of those who grew up during the colonial period, for those that aren't familiar with the history, they they have British passports or are entitled to them. And then the following year, when the COVID-19 pandemic broke out, the Beijing imposed the very unpopular national security law, basically criminalizing the territory's plans for succession, subversion, and collusion with foreign forces. And then there was many opposition figures were arrested or disqualified, and civil liberties and press freedoms were significantly curtailed by Beijing, aligned forces within the territory. So from starting in 2021 and concluding in 2023, the Chinese Communist Party introduced sweeping electoral reforms, ensuring that patriots, as they put it, those, in other words, those sympathetic to Beijing and the Chinese Communist Party, toe the state narrative and govern the territory of Hong Kong. And by the 2020s, Hong Kong's integration with mainland China across the border, deepened through the Greater Bay Area Development Plan. So you've got, now we're gonna get into the modern day city. So over the course of the last 5 years, so from like 2020 up until now, so the economy within the territory remains a leading international financial center, though facing challenges from geopolitical tensions and competition. For example, specifically the Singapore, which is also a major financial hub in the Asian continent. Then there's governance. You've got the chief executive is selected through a pro-Beijing Chinese Communist Party sympathetic leaning committee. The legislative council is largely aligned with central authorities. And then you have the society. Immigration within the territory has from the territory, rather, excuse me, has increased, especially to the United Kingdom, the former colonial power, Canada, and Australia, where there is a large, Chinese immigrant diaspora exile community, specifically after 2020, following the passage of the deeply unpopular national security law, and yeah, and then you got the question of then you have the identity question, which is Hong Kong's cultural and political identity continues to evolve, balancing Chinese national integration with its unique global heritage within the territory. So, now I'm going to take you through a little timeline dating all the way back to the 1840s, when the Imperial British Empire first occupied what was then known as, Hong Kong Island, a small fishing village in the southern part of China. So that officially started in 1841. Then in the following year, there was a treaty signed that became to be known as the Treaty of Nanking. That's when the territory of Hong Kong, or Hong Kong Island, whatever you want to call it, was officially ceded to the Imperial British Empire. And then by 1860, the Kowloon Peninsula ceded. And then by 1898, the new territories was leased until for the next 99 years. And then by World War II, for a period of 4 years, so from 1941 until 1945, the Imperial Japanese forces occupied the territory. And then by by 1984, there was a joint British-Chinese declaration signed. And then by the year I was born, in 1990, basic law was promulgated. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. And if I didn't, then my apologies. And please don't hesitate to let me know in the comment section down below if I made any sort of hiccup there. And then by 1997, this is key, the territory was, officially handed over to the People's Republic of China by the outgoing Imperial British Empire, after the lease upon the territory officially expired. And then let's fast forward to 2003, which is over 20 years ago now, which doesn't seem real, to be honest. But anyway, there was something called the Anti-Article 23 protests, and that resulted in a lot of widespread outrage within the territory. And then by 2014, there was the Umbrella Movement, and then in 2019 there was the anti-extradition protests, and that resulted in a mass exodus of territory residents migrating out of the territory, mostly to the likes of the former colonial power, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, where, like I've said previously, there's a large immigrant Chinese exile diaspora. And then in 2020, when the COVID-19 pandemic unfortunately broke out, there was a deeply unpopular national security law that was enacted in the territory, which critics say was closely aligned with the Chinese Communist Party in Beijing. And then from 2021 until 2023, electoral reforms were passed, and a pro-Chinese Communist Party narrative was solidified within the territory, much to the displeasure of most of the population. So that just about concludes today's episode, which is the first of many to come in the history of Hong Kong, a very special part of the world in my opinion. And if you liked what I discussed in today's video, then by all means leave a comment down below. I like hearing what you have to say about it. Like the video and subscribe to the channel as well, because helps me out considerably, and it's much appreciated. But until next time, sit tight. There's definitely more from me to come in the foreseeable future. I finally have some professional grade equipment uh, at long last. But until then, this has been yours truly.